The stars outside the viewport stretched infinitely, a glittering lattice of light against the inky darkness of space. Maren Voss, barely 17, pressed her forehead to the glass of the shuttle cabin, watching the streaking lights of hyperlanes rushing past. This was supposed to be the start of her life, the culmination of years of studying, preparing, and dreaming. She had earned a place at the Orion Academy, a renowned institution for the gifted, the elite, the ones who could navigate both the politics and the perils of galactic diplomacy and exploration. But someone or something had made a mistake. She had been issued an enrollment confirmation for Academy Sector 9B, Alpha Division. The shuttle logs, however, had been tampered with, she later discovered, and the coordinates had been rerouted to the wrong academy entirely. It wasn't the Orion Academy. Not by a mile. The facility she now approached was a fortress of black crystalline metal, angular and menacing, perched atop a rocky asteroid that seemed to float without anchor in the dark void. Its exterior gleamed like a predator's carapace, reflecting distant starlight in sharp, jagged fragments. Red lights pulsed rhythmically along its edges, like the heartbeat of a living weapon. Maren's shuttle docked with a hiss, and the door slid open to reveal a hall lined with statues of warriors, some humanoid, some alien, all with eyes that seemed to follow her every movement. The smell of ozone and oil was thick in the air. Somewhere deep within the academy, metal doors slammed shut, echoing through the cavernous corridors. "Welcome, cadet," a voice called from overhead, metallic and hollow. "You are now enrolled in the Galaxian Combat Academy, Deadliest Division. Adjust your expectations accordingly." Maren blinked. Combat? Deadliest? She had applied to study galactic diplomacy and strategy, not hand-to-hand combat or war simulations. But before she could protest, she was ushered down a corridor lined with holographic displays of combat scenarios, weapons of every imaginable type, and historical battles that had left entire planets in ashes. The orientation. By the time she reached the central hall, Maren realized the scale of the academy. Thousands of cadets moved with purpose, each bearing marks of extreme skill. Limbs enhanced with cybernetic implants, eyes that glowed with neural augments, armor that shimmered with adaptive camouflage. Some were human like her, but most were alien. Towering insectoids with exoskeletons of gleaming green, amphibious species with membranes that reflected the light like oil slicks, and a handful of beings she couldn't even begin to classify. Her own uniform felt laughably simple. She clutched it tight, trying not to attract attention. "Cadet Voss," a stern voice called. She turned to see an instructor approaching, a figure cloaked in shadow and edged with jagged metallic plating. "You are late to your first assessment. Follow me, or be marked absent. Absence here is costly." Maren followed, heart hammering. The first assessment was a combat simulation in zero-gravity chambers. While she had basic training from self-defense courses and some physical conditioning, this was an entirely different level. Combatants moved with precision, launching themselves through the chamber, exchanging plasma blades and energy shields in a dance that was terrifying to watch. When it was her turn, Maren froze at the center of the chamber. Instinct took over. She ducked a laser sweep, rolled under a plasma strike, and then somehow, her hand found a loose control panel. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. And somehow she survived. The instructors stared at her. Not with anger. Not with disappointment. But with the kind of stunned recognition one reserves for someone who has walked through fire unscathed and emerged whole. "You are different," the lead instructor murmured. The reality of the academy. Over the next week, Maren learned the horrifying truth of the Galaxian Combat Academy. Unlike other academies, where strategy and theory were taught safely, Every student here was being molded for survival against the galaxy's deadliest predators, both human and alien. Missions were real. Training often resulted in injury or worse. Cadets were not merely encouraged to fight. They were encouraged to dominate, to exploit weakness, to push limits beyond what even their species had thought possible. Marin, small and seemingly unremarkable, began to notice something about herself. While the others relied on technology, enhancements, and sheer brute force, she had a knack for improvisation, for understanding environments, for reading the intentions of others before they acted. Every time she was pushed to the edge, her instincts, human instincts, raw and unenhanced, kept her alive. It wasn't long before whispers began circulating among the cadets. "Who is she?" they asked. "How does she survive every trial?" Her first true test came in the Labyrinth of Shadows, a massive training arena that simulated urban combat on a hostile planet. The objective was simple: retrieve a data core and escape. But the labyrinth was alive, shifting walls, concealed turrets, and ambushes at every turn. Marin's approach was unconventional. Instead of charging forward like the others, she studied the patterns of patrol drones, listened to the hum of shifting walls, and used shadows to her advantage. When a group of elite cadets ambushed her, she didn't fight. They fell into each other's line of fire, giving her a narrow path to escape. By the end of the test, she was bleeding, bruised, and utterly exhausted, but she held the data core aloft as the others lay scattered or trapped. Every instructor she passed stared silently, acknowledging that something extraordinary had just happened. Unexpected allies. Marin's success made her a target, as well as an asset. Some cadets tried to sabotage her, while others approached her, seeking alliance. Among them was Kale, a human with neural augmentations that made him a near telepath in combat. Rith, a reptilian alien whose tail was as deadly as a whip, and Sarah, a small but fierce amphibian whose reflexes rivaled any cybernetic enhancement. Together, they formed an uneasy alliance. Marin realized that in this academy, survival wasn't just about skill, it was about trust, strategy, and knowing when to strike. Her leadership instincts, honed in diplomatic simulations she'd once believed irrelevant, suddenly became invaluable. She coordinated ambushes, planned escapes, and even improvised defenses against rogue AI units sent to test the cadets' abilities. Through these trials, Marin began to understand why she had been mistakenly sent here. She wasn't meant to fit the mold of the deadliest cadet. She was meant to redefine it. The Tournament of Titans. The Academy's ultimate test came in the form of the Tournament of Titans. Cadets competed in teams for dominance over a simulated planet. The winning team would receive a direct commission in the Galaxian Defense Force, an elite fighting force whose reach spanned the galaxy. Losing wasn't fatal, usually, but it could mean permanent expulsion or relegation to menial labor colonies. Marin's team faced opponents with cybernetic claws, energy shields, gravity-manipulating devices, and psychic enhancements. Yet, time and again, she turned disadvantages into opportunities. She used the environment, a collapsing structure, zero-gravity voids, plasma vents, to trap opponents, split teams, and disrupt enemy coordination. In the final battle, Marin's team faced the Academy's reigning champions, a trio of augmented veterans who had never lost a single engagement. The odds seemed insurmountable, but Marin spotted a pattern in their movements: reliance on predictable sequences, overconfidence, and underestimation of human intuition. Using nothing but timing, environment, and instinct, she led her team in a series of maneuvers so audacious that even the instructors went silent. The champions fell one by one, outmaneuvered and outwitted, not by technology, but by cunning, courage, and relentless persistence. When the final signal sounded, Marin stood alone in the arena for a heartbeat, surveying the devastation she had orchestrated. Then the applause began, from cadets, instructors, even the spectating dignitaries. The revelation after the tournament. The headmaster approached her. A tall, armored figure, whose face was partially obscured by a reflective mask, spoke in a tone that was both formal and awestruck. "Cadet Voss," he said, "you were never meant to be here. The Orion Academy was your original destination. Yet, watching you operate has convinced us otherwise. You are exactly what the Galaxian Combat Academy requires." Marin's jaw tightened. "You're saying I belong here in a place I didn't even want to come?" The headmaster removed his mask. Beneath it, a scarred but commanding face smiled faintly. "Not only do you belong, but you will redefine what it means to survive. Your instincts, your intuition, your unenhanced humanity, it's a strength the galaxy has forgotten. You will be the benchmark by which future cadets are measured." For the first time since her shuttle had docked at the wrong academy, Marin allowed herself to feel a sense of purpose, not just survival, but leadership, innovation, and influence. A new era begins months later. Marin had transformed from a bewildered newcomer into a legend within the academy. Cadets whispered of the girl who could survive anything, who had turned the Deadliest Academy into a proving ground not for technology alone, but for the strength of the human mind and heart. The galaxy beyond the academy was vast and dangerous. Warlords, alien predators, rogue AI fleets, and interstellar mercenaries waited to test humanity's limits. But Marin now understood something crucial. The deadliest weapon in the universe wasn't claws, armor, or lasers. It was courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to be broken. As she stood atop the observation tower, gazing at the stars, she smiled. She had entered the wrong academy, but somehow that wrong turn had been exactly what she needed. Every predator, every danger, every threat that would come her way, she would face them. And every time, she would emerge stronger. Somewhere in the distance, the stars pulsed, indifferent yet beautiful. And Marin Voss, human among gods and monsters, knew that the galaxy had never seen anything like her, and it never would again.